Are you thinking about moving to the Metro West area of Boston? I've lived here my whole life, and my team member and friend Dede relocated here after relocating 9 times around the country. Nine reloads. In our last video, we compared our perspectives on living in the suburbs of Boston, kind of game show style. So make sure you watch it. It was fun. And we had such a good time. We thought it would be fun to continue. And this is part 2. So our producer is feeding us some questions so we can share our perspectives on different things about living here. So let's dive in. I'm Jane. I'm a realtor based in Wellesley, Massachusetts. Dede is my trusted team member, and we have helped lots of buyers who have found us right here on our YouTube channel. If you are thinking of relocating to Metro West area of Boston, please reach out and remember to subscribe. The first question our producer is asking is, what about weather in Boston? I actually have talked about this in a couple videos. What is the best thing about the weather here?
Okay. So I think the best thing about the weather is that there are the true 4 seasons. That's for sure. The fact that because there are 4 seasons, there is always something to do, which we kind of alluded to in part 1. The New Englanders use those seasons. They find a way to have a great time no matter what it's like. The other thing that I think is relevant to weather is that, regardless of what your background and what you may celebrate or what have you, having the different seasons so defined gives you the chance to build memories, and sort of it's just a quintessential New England thing that you have these seasons, they change, and you can put your holidays in it and do all of your extracurriculars around it. And if you don't like one, you're going to get another one pretty soon.
And we do like to complain when it's January and February. Everyone starts to complain about how it's cold and dark. And then I usually get to some point where I say, if one more person posts a picture of their toes in the sand on Instagram, I'm going to lose my mind. So then usually we try to book a trip to go put our toes in the sand.
That's true. Well, and being Southern, we really had kind of 2 seasons. We had hot and less hot. And that was basically it. We can play golf all year around. Mm-hmm. So, I guess I could use that as a positive.
Yeah.
But at least up here, there's something for everyone.
Yeah.
Up here.
So, and I was going to say, it's always changing, sometimes in the same week. So it's November of 2024, and we have had no rain for like a month, which is really weird. It's been dry and beautiful and temperate. So we were at the Cape this weekend. We were walking. We were on the beach, sitting with the sun on our faces. It was fantastic. But it was really cold one day, and you're like, got to get out my winter coat. And then all of a sudden, it's not so cold. Yeah. So always changing, never a dull moment. So what's the worst thing about the weather here from your perspective, coming from Georgia where you were raised?
Yeah. Well, I think
in case you could not tell, she's from Georgia.
That's right. I think that it is the thing I would share with someone who's moving here is that you are going to get a lot tougher skin about the weather. So the first year that we moved here, we had a crazy snowy winter. Remember that?
Oh, it was 2015.
It was brutal.
It was apocryphal snow.
It was.
It was crazy snow.
Like the whole winter, we had literally feet of snow in our yard. And so that I thought, what am I doing here? Why did I do this? But we had the sledding and all of that, which helped, and that was fun. But then the next year, it was like, okay, now I know that I don't put away my clothes, right? Because it's Thanksgiving, I might need that lesser jacket because it's always changing, as Jane said. But you do kind of get used to it, especially the winters, if you're moving from California or somewhere down south where you're not so used to the snow. And the biggest surprise to me was when I was growing up, if it were to snow a half an inch, that would be
schools were closed,
crazy. Yeah. And you would literally go out and buy $900 worth of everything because you thought you'd never get out. Up here, it can snow 15 inches and nothing's closed. They're still going to school. The sleds have got it out of the way in 5 minutes.
15 inches would probably close school. But you're right. A couple of inches, no big deal.
And by the next morning or even 2 days later, even after a big snow, everything's kind of rolling on track. You start getting used to that for sure.
Yeah. You get good at driving in the snow.
Yeah.
And so the one thing that I've noticed is the weather is much hotter now, and it's more humid than I remember growing up. So that is a thing, because we literally grew up with no air conditioning in our car or in our house. My friends from Florida couldn't believe that, but it's used to be that there was a heat wave in August. Now we have heat waves in May. That's been a little bit different, but that is not unique to New England either.
No, that's true. I mean, I think that big snow we talked about, kind of miss that. You know, like I wish we could get a really big snow like that again. I know I have friends that are big snowboarders. Actually, one of our inspectors is a really big snowboarder, his son, and they've been looking at the Farmer's Almanac and all sorts of things, just praying that they get a ton of snow this year so that they can enjoy their activities. So yeah, it is definitely more temperate. And I've noticed that just in the decade that I've been here. Yeah. It definitely is, yeah.
What is the biggest surprise that relocating clients have when they have moved to Metro West? Dede.
Okay.
What was the biggest surprise? Hit us.
I have to say, we shoot it straight on here, right? We tell you the truth. Okay,
yes,
so the cost. The cost was a shock, I will tell you. We moved here from Chicago. We had a beautiful home in Chicago that it was in the 400s. That is a real challenge in Massachusetts. So I think that while people obviously are doing searches online and they sort of know, I think until they actually get here and walk in a house that's priced at 600 or 700, it is really hard to explain the value cost ratio here. So the good news is that you also on the other side of that have appreciation and different, benefits. I think you would say your educational, experience is different in the town. So your tax money and all of that is really funding very good things. You do grow into it, but that first, blush was a shocker. The first time we went out, and I didn't have a Jane, frankly, so I didn't have somebody who kind of prepped me, and I was very taken aback at what it was going to be for us to live as we were used to. But then we've grown into it. It does, sort of work out, but it's a shock at first.
Or sometimes people will be relocating and maybe they don't tell us, but their budget's 1.3, but they tell us their budget's $850. So then we show them what they can have for $850. And then all of a sudden they're like, can you show me something that's a little higher? I think that another thing that I think is surprising is that we don't use our public transportation as much as you would think. And if you compare our commutes to like Californians commute way further.
Really good point, yeah.
But there is a lot of traffic and people do sit in cars as opposed to using public transportation. I always encourage people to use the commuter rail, which is in most of the towns that we talk about.
That's true. I think to understand a little bit why the commuter rail is not as probably prominent as we'd like it to be, it was the first in the country, right? So the way it was designed is not necessarily aligned to today's workforce. So sometimes people that are, for example, if you're relocating to work in Cambridge, we can give you some tricks of the trade there. I used to have to reload to Cambridge, but it's not as easy as one would think with the industries being so important in that area. They are working to improve the transit to help people get to more, like even out on the seaport, right? The seaport was not developed for years and now it's such a big place for people to work. So those are kinds of the things that we can help with. There's still a lot of car commuters for sure.
Yes.
That's a very, very good point, Jane.
Best thing about real estate in Metro West. That's easy.
Yeah.
This is our, I'll go first.
Yes.
What I love most about the real estate in Metro West is there is truly something for everyone. I've actually referenced Dede on this channel because we both live in Victorians, which is kind of fun. You can find everything from new construction to mid-century modern to a split level to a cottage to a bungalow, sometimes all on the same street. I would imagine that one of the things that appealed to you about Wellesley was how pretty the neighborhoods are with our beautiful old housing stock.
Yeah, and in fact, we are 100% aligned on this, Jane, because I wrote down the variety, I wrote down the beauty, and then I actually wrote down history because I think, depending on where you're from, I have loved being able to raise my daughter in the cradle of liberty, right? And there's so much to do. There's also quite an enclave. I'm big into literature, as is Jane, just up the street in Concord as well, where a lot of the very prolific writers in America lived and worked and were in communes together actually to write their works. There's just so much richness here to the history, but at the same time, the architecture is second to none. So even if you have what we like to call, which I think Jane definitely has, which is a new old house. So she's got a beautiful old historically important home in town, but with an amazing builder, which happens to be her husband. They have really sort of upgraded the home to today's standards, etc. So there's a lot of that. But if you're someone who's like, you know what, I just want to build a brand new house, I want one that looked like it did in California, then that's definitely something that you can either find or do. So there is really something for everyone. And frankly, these towns are beautiful. There's a reason that there are postcards and puzzles and other things that look like New England. Like if you look at different holiday things and whatever, it's almost a picture perfect postcard of the towns where we sell. So they are very, very beautiful. There's a lot of natural walking trails and all of that. There's a big commitment to maintaining the land so that we don't have it overdeveloped in many of the towns.
Lots of community preservation.
Yes, a lot of preservation.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What's the worst thing about real estate in Metro West? Okay, go.
Okay. You know what? Can I jump out on this?
You bet. She didn't even want to write it down. She just wanted to jump right in.
I didn't write it down because you know what? Our team serves so many different clients all around, and one continual challenge that we certainly have a way of overcoming for our clients, but is the competitive nature. And this is not a unique problem to New England. There's just not enough inventory everywhere. But after COVID, there was particular competition to move out of the city and into the burbs. A lot of people have been planning to do it. They just decided to go ahead and do it. And then a lot of folks had great, they've refinanced their houses. So they have exceptional interest rates. So that's adding to the lack of inventory here. And so when you do come upon a home that you like, you do have to really sort of have the terms defined ahead of time on what you're willing to do, because there will be cases where Jane and I are like, listen, we know you love the house, but we've already discussed that you're not willing to do this, that, or the other. It will be a multiple offer situation. Do you know what I mean? So we have to sometimes help counsel that. It's very, very competitive. So while it's beautiful, all those positives that we just talked about, that's the flip side of the coin, right? Is that it's also quite competitive.
Quite demanding. And then again, I would say trying to help people under 1.5 million can be challenging. So sometimes we start in Wellesley and then we move out a little bit. And we have clients that that have found us on this channel that are 800 to a million.
Absolutely.
And we have been successful in helping them find a home, but it might be a little bit further from Boston than they initially thought.
We did help a client, if I may, in the 400s out in Springfield. So we will do what it takes for sure. We set the realistic expectations. Because we really do believe, like, when did $500,000 get to be no money, right? We can empathize with that. It is tough.
For sure.
So we can get pretty creative based on the guidelines and guardrails of our clients. But I think, we don't want anyone that sees us to think that you have to have a minimum amount, because we're happy to help you.
Yeah.
But just, perspective on the cost and so forth.
Right.
Yeah.
And sometimes when people say, how can you help me in so many places? The reason is that Dede and I work together. So she tends to support people in some of the towns that are a little further out, because we like to preview and really see the properties that we're showing you. You can't be everywhere and every price point. So we just had clients that found us here from California. They have 4 little boys.
They do.
And they wanted, almost like a farm. That worked out because of their commute and what they were looking for and what their price range, it all worked. So Dede investigated a lot of towns that I would not normally go to, and I might not have the time to go to. 2 are better than 1 sometimes.
That's right. Yeah.
2 heads are better than 1.
That's it. I think that's definitely right. And I also think it's a reflection of the market itself out here, is that it used to be very centric to where you lived was your domain. We've learned to meet the changing needs of our clients, that we also had to become experts in places that we didn't necessarily focus to before. So that's been a good 5-year investment of our time. And we now are very dialed into many, many of the towns outside of our area. And that gives us a breadth that really kind of helps. And, there's a lot of real estate agents. So you've got to see which one is the right fit for you. And we have really focused on being that value add to the clients, particularly those that would find us here, because 9 times out of 10, they're going to be a reload client.
So if you are thinking about moving to the Metro West area of Boston, we hope that you will give us a call. And remember to subscribe. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.